on time. So I just want to thank everyone first. This session is about our new digital survey for our teamwork assessment. Not luckily, we have two people here that also piloted the, oh, actually three, because I saw Robert's in here too. We had three people that piloted the survey. So later on in the session, they'll have an opportunity to kind of talk, Jenny and Liz, and if Robert wants to, we won't put them on the spot. But if they want to talk about their pilot experience with the survey, they can. But I just kind of wanted to give a little bit of the history, the background, and then also show the survey and send it to all of you so you can play around with it. We're a very small group, and I don't consider this much of a very formal session. So please feel free to unmute yourself at any time. I want this to be interactive, and I want you to have a chance to play with the survey and try it out yourself. So first, our purpose today is to
introduce... Can I jump in real quick? I'm so sorry. I have to go to Mallory's session, but I just wanted to thank you faculty members for being so supportive of Amanda and the work she's doing with assessment, and thanks for being here. So thank you very much, and thanks to Amanda for doing a great job.
Thank you. Let me real quick, I just got a message from someone that said that the Zoom link didn't work for them. Let me just send them the Zoom link real quick. Sorry, it'll take me just 2 seconds. Copy link address. Let's see. Okay, there we go. Let me see if that's what they needed. Okay, so our goal today is to introduce the survey and to also share experiences from the pilot of the survey, and anyone that's here can also share experience with teamwork assessment in itself. I know that that can be really difficult to feel like you're getting a valid assessment of teamwork or an authentic assessment, as well as it's very difficult in a remote setting to feel like you're finding that sense of group morale or that sense of feeling of a team. So at the end of the session, you should be able to we're going to review the criteria of the teamwork rubric. We're going to use the digital survey, and that way you can feel comfortable using it in your classroom, and we'll collaborate with each other over teamwork strategies. So just a little bit of the history of the teamwork ILO and the survey itself. The teamwork learning outcome is that our students can consider different points of view and work effectively with others to support a shared purpose or goal. And then what's unique about this particular rubric is that we actually have a definition of a teamwork activity on the rubric too, just to clarify what makes a teamwork assignment. An activity is a teamwork activity when faculty asks 2 or more students to work together to complete a common task. So it doesn't have to be a large group assignment. It can just be a partner assignment as well. Now the rubric has 3 criteria. Does the student make a quality contribution to the team activity? Does the student treat the fellow team members courteously with respect? And does the student model personal attributes that contribute to teamwork? And the rubric, which we're going to look at in just a second, really breaks down what it means for a quality contribution versus contributing with personal attributes, because those can seem almost very similar. So I'm going to share the rubric now so we can take a look at it. Okay, so whenever I work on this rubric and whenever I made the teamwork survey, I focused on the highly competent just to see all of the qualifications for someone making a quality contribution to the group activity. I'll make it a little bit bigger so we can, I don't know why it's a little blurry. So did the team member help the team accomplish its goals? Did the group or team member perform beyond expectations? Was the team member the leader in the project? And then the team member proactively helped other team members complete their assignments. So I know in speaking with some other faculty members that use this rubric in their course, they really stress that it takes a lot. If you're going to rate someone a 4, that's a big accomplishment, because you're saying this person was a leader. They helped other people contribute to the task. So that's a big deal to give someone a 4. And they also stress that not everybody is going to get a 4. So if we look at the mostly competent, where I think a lot of our students rate themselves, is that they helped the team accomplish the goal, they met expectations, they completed the task by the deadline, and their work was thorough. So this is all about the work and their contributions. How did they help the team move forward? The next part, we've actually never really had many issues with this, but the student treats fellow team members courteously with respect. So this one's pretty straightforward. You respected and honored the views of your team members, and they promoted harmony or managed conflict effectively within a group. I found that just with these pilot responses, because I've been able to see a lot of student responses, we get most students feeling like their team members do treat them with respect. I did think it was interesting that there was one group in particular. I thought it was sweet because the students rate themselves on this, and he said, I cussed once and I felt bad about that, and I said sorry, but I felt bad that it came to that point. And so he or she, I don't actually remember, they gave themselves, I think, a 2. And nobody else in the group actually called them on that, but I thought it was sweet that they felt personally responsible for that. Then the last one is the student models personal attributes that contribute to teamwork. This one's a little bit more, I think this one the students find is more task-oriented. They tend to focus on, did they attend the meetings? I think that's because it's the thing that students can kind of quantitate more in their mind, like yes or no. They attended 3 out of the 4. Were they prepared? Were they enthusiastic? And did they initiate good discussion? And then it also says may have completed extra work. So I noticed a lot of students actually use that part of the performance level language to justify their responses in their survey. They said, oh, well, this person, I gave them a 4 because I felt like they had to pick up the slack for another person in the group. So it was really nice because, and you'll see in a moment, the teamwork survey online does have the students focus on one criterion at a time, and they're able to really analyze that language a little bit more. I'm going to come back here. Are there any questions before I move on or comments?
I think that's kind of an interesting thing that people are rating each other as being courteous in their group, but then some people are picking up slack. I think that might be kind of interesting to bring up as behaving courteously as responding to your classmates and taking on your fair share as well.
I think that's a really cool point. I think that has to do with maybe a discussion about the teamwork rubric before the survey goes out too. I remember there was one survey I was compiling the results for, and you bring up such a great point because the student wrote they gave this team member like a 1. They said they were always respectful when we talked to them, but they didn't respond to emails, they didn't do their part, and they said I consider that disrespectful. But that was the only one. Everyone else gave them a 4. So I think it is important to have those conversations about what makes respect in a team setting. And I actually have some resources for that if anyone's interested. I'll share that at the end of the session. But I think that's a great point, Elizabeth. Okay. Let me go to the next slide. So our teamwork assessment is unique compared to our other assessments. What we've done with pretty much every other ILO, key assignments and artifacts are submitted, and we rate the student work itself. What did the student accomplish based on the rubric and the actual piece of work? But for our teamwork assessment, we typically don't rate the key assignment. We might look at it for reference to ensure that it was a teamwork activity, but our assessment process is unique that students actually are rating their peers and themselves. And that is what most campuses do because the rubric itself is about feelings, right? It's about, was I treated with respect? Did I work well with a team group? We wouldn't be able to see that just by staring at a piece of work necessarily. So students rate themselves and their peers. Faculty complete an evaluation of each student using the teamwork rubric as well, or at least it was a little wordy to include this, but each student that's in the actual sample. And then the teamwork assignment, like I said, is not directly assessed. The peer interaction and participation is what's being rated. So we're relying a lot on the students in this case. And like I said, faculty too, to include their peer evaluation, and we take a summary of that. But it's also difficult to get, like I said, authentic results because you have sometimes if you're giving the survey to students and they're sitting next to their partner, they might not want to just bash that partner straight off the bat if you're sitting next to them. So that was one of the thought processes behind creating this digital survey.
Can I?
Yeah.
I'm getting the impression that we're not going to submit an artifact.
You still submit the artifact just so we have it. No, that's a great question, Lance. So you still submit the artifact
okay.
So that way we know that we have it on record that it was a teamwork assignment. If anyone was ever to question it, we're not the ones questioning it. But if maybe for a SAC COC report or if THECB questioned something, if we needed to provide data that it was a teamwork assignment, we'll still have the key assignment on file.
Okay. And just as a brief follow-up for that,
yeah.
We're still doing the teamwork assignment that particular student worked on, correct?
Yes,
so
that's correct.
So basically, yeah, it's like turning in artifacts for everything else.
Yes, it is the same as turning in the artifacts. It's just the artifact itself is not rated.
Okay, I was getting the idea that there wasn't going to be any artifact involved.
Oh, no, I'm sorry if I gave that impression. Thank you for clarifying. So the actual the digital survey, I met with a couple different colleges in San Antonio that also do a digital survey. Before, this was a paper and pencil survey. I gave a sample of it right here. There's a very small section for students to explain their rating. So honestly, unless there was some incentive, students didn't typically give an explanation for their rating. They just circled their opinions, and if they gave an explanation, it was like a one-word, like good, did great. You know, it was a very short, brief explanation. And the surveys were usually given during class time because that's the best way, like we know that can be the best way to get results and responses back is giving the survey in the class and expecting it to come back by the end of class or by the end of a time frame. So the digital survey is still based on the same teamwork ILO rubric, but it requires students to give a rationale. So students can still give a very short explanation if they want, like did great, but I haven't found that to be the case. They're in the minority now, where the majority are giving really nice explanations about why they felt they should have rated this person in this manner. We had a small pilot group in spring 2020. Robert was part of my pilot group in biology. So was Elizabeth Ginn in speech. They were part of my pilot in spring 2020. And then we had a larger pilot group in fall 2020 because we wanted to expand it to make sure we highlighted all of the disciplines or as many disciplines as possible that assess teamwork. So we had Robert, Jared, and Elizabeth from the sciences. And then we had Elizabeth, who's here right now, I didn't say your last name, Montgomery. And then I had Karen Mahaffey and Nick Castagnon from arts, the fine visual and performing arts. And then, because I don't want to leave anyone out, I had Jenny and then Genevieve Cruz from English test out the survey too. Now, the faculty who were involved in the pilot, they were given the option if they wanted to assign it to all of their courses or just focus on one particular course. So in the end, I went through the data recently. I think we had 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. We had 15 different sections testing it out this last fall. So I would love to share the survey now, and I'm really excited to share it with you, and I'm going to let you test it out too. So I'm going to put the link in the chat if you want to test it out from a participant view, and then I'm going to kind of show you what it looks like as well. All right. There we go. Now, I made this survey as a demo, so please feel free to actually try taking the survey. It will not affect anyone's results because I made a copy of it. So here's what the survey looks like. The first thing is just logistics. Choose your name. Now, I highlighted it in red, and there's very few students that made a mistake. There's obviously opportunity for error here, but very few students made an error in this first part. So I'm going to pick my name, Amanda Harrison, and then the next step is click on all the other group members in your team. I put it in red again. Do not select your own name. This is where we've had some just student error and misreading, but if you give the survey to your class, you can always highlight that with them and just review it. So I'm going to say I was working with Julie and Mallory. And then I'm going to click next. So now that my demographic information is out of the way, and in this case I'm calling demographic, I guess personal information about my group, we actually get into the content of the survey. So at the top it tells them what criterion 1 is, and then it gives just a quick explanation of be honest, nobody's going to see this. And then we also put this note in here. This is not a comparative process. Your group members could have the same rating or each one can be different. We didn't want students to feel like they were ranking their team members. So then we give the actual criterion. And one thing that really helped us was a change from spring to fall. I wanted to make sure they had some help in their justifications. So I'll show you that in a second. I'm jumping ahead of myself. So after they read through the rubric, you see that my names were populated here. So it took my name from the first page. I'm the first person here. I'm going to rate myself. And then it took my 2 team members that I put in from the first page as well. So then I'll give them their ratings. And I'll scroll down to the next part. It says, please provide a brief explanation of your ratings. And one thing that I did, and I guess maybe I didn't copy the right survey, but in the other surveys, I put a sentence here that said, if you get stuck in providing an explanation, go back and use the language of the rubric. And I saw some students doing that in their explanations. They would go back and say, oh, well, this team member, they performed beyond expectations. Or they said, oh, this person helped the other team members complete the assignment. So they went back and used that information. And here's the best part, because I didn't do this in spring and I was wondering what I did. If I'm like, well, I want to talk about myself and say how wonderful I am, and I'm like, I'm just going to leave those blank. When I hit next, it's going to tell me no. Please write a brief comment about all team members. Use the language from the rubric to help you if you get stuck on what to write. So there's no way for them to get away from that. And of course, that might be when if you have a frustrated student, they might just write, good, good. But most people did take the time to go back and review their team members. So once you're done with criterion 1, you hit next, and we go through the same process with criterion 2. So it gives the rubric information. It tells them to rate yourself and each of your team members on their respect towards their team. You would rate everyone, then provide a brief explanation. And it does the same thing for criterion 3. And then you're done. The students submit the survey and they're done. What's also nice. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
And this goes back to the very, very, very first page of the survey.
Sure.
When it's on student evaluation, self and peers, and this is just an ignorance question because I don't know. Are all of the peers, everybody in the student is listed, so they have to find the person?
Yes. So I tried to come up with a better solution for that, but nobody really has yet. I did find that if I put them in alphabetical order by the first name, it helps students find them a lot faster.
Oh, yeah, that and then I guess my question is there's no way to correct if the wrong person is entered.
Not so.
And the only reason,
go ahead.
The only reason I say that is because this semester it just so happens I have 2 students with extremely similar names, like Sebastian Velasquez versus Sabina Velasquez. You know what I mean? And so
yes.
It's just there's no way to catch a mistake though, right?
They can as they continue. So that's kind of on my end as well. So actually, it's funny you mentioned that. I think, and I don't know if it was Robert or Jared or maybe it's someone completely different. Someone had a set of twins in their class when I made this survey in the fall. And the twins both had M names and the same last name. And I think, was that you, Robert?
Those are my students. I had 2 twins.
And they were they had very similar names, right?
They did. It was like Madison and Madeline. I think they're like 1 or 2 letters apart. Yeah.
Yes. And so when I was making it, I was like, oh no. But honestly, they didn't seem to have an issue, thankfully, because what is nice is once you select that person's name, I mean, obviously we're requiring a little bit on the student to say, hey, wait, I don't think that's who I meant to select. And if they do catch it themselves, they can go back to the previous slide and then correct it here.
Okay.
And then also I caught a couple, Sarah, you're making me think back to spring 2020. I'm able to catch it a little bit on the data side of it. Now, obviously, I'm not going to be an expert, but there was one person in Elizabeth Ginn's class that was swearing he did the survey, and he sent a screenshot. He's like, no, I did it. And the screenshot made it sound like he submitted it, but I didn't have any data for him. And so then with her and I combined, we realized that he had not selected his own name. He had selected a teammate's name from the beginning and then did the rest of the survey with the rest of the team members. So we were able to piece together his responses still. So it's a little tricky, but in general, we haven't had too many issues with that. And if a student catches it, they can go back to the first page or resubmit. I have had the cases where I've seen students resubmit a survey multiple times. And a lot of times, SurveyMonkey is kind of cool in the sense that actually if I went to SurveyMonkey over here, if I was analyzing the results from the teamwork demo right now, and I went to our survey, it says I have one response. I haven't submitted it yet. This one response is me going through the demo right now. Even though I haven't submitted it, it's recording that I've done something. So there's been a couple times where I've noticed like there's a student, like maybe Julie responded, but then somewhere along the way, it drops off her responses and then I see her submit again. So there are a couple just natural errors that occur, but thankfully nothing that hasn't been able to be addressed or fixed has come up yet, I hope. Are there any other questions about the survey while I'm on the screen? Okay.
I had a quick, I don't know if this is really relevant in terms of the survey, and it looks like you've already addressed it, but I know from QM we talked about accessibility and we talked about making sure that if we're trying to highlight information in a way that stands out to the student to be leery of just using color, but it looks like you've got bold and caps and I guess italics for directions. So if they're colorblind, they're still going to be able to recognize the importance.
That's a good point. I will go double check that too, because I did try and make sure it wasn't just the color that stood out, but that's a good point. Thank you, Jennifer. I'll double check. I also wanted to share with you guys just some of the progress of the pilot. So I think we have encouraging results. So honestly, with surveys, I mean, I've experienced this even just with the Convocation surveys. You send out a survey to 100 people, you might get 30% back, right? But so far in spring 2020, we had 92% of the students submit. And then what I think is even more encouraging is fall 2020, we had a bigger group. We had about 337 students involved in this, and there was an 88% submission rate. And I think what's really important here is that when we did the 92% submission rate in the spring, most of those faculty had the survey as a part of the grade for the teamwork assignment. So students were a little bit more motivated to submit the teamwork survey because it was attached to a portion of their grade. In fall, that's not too significant of a drop for the submission rate in my mind, especially since we opened it up to more subject areas and more students. And there were, there were 15 people. About half of the courses did not require the survey as a part of the grade, but the students still completed it even without that grade emphasis or that grade. There's a word I'm looking for and my brain won't think of on my third meeting in the morning. But that grade incentive, there's the word. So I think this is really encouraging, and then students must justify their ratings, and it's a great way to gain insight into the group dynamic. Lance?
Is there a way for instructors to check who turned in who submitted this survey and who didn't?
That's still a part of our logistics that we're working out. So right now, I'm the host of the survey. I'm the only one that can see the results. But what I've done is I've asked, whenever a faculty does this with me, I ask them when their assignment is due, and I set up kind of a schedule. I say, okay, do you want me to check in with you like 2 days before the assignment, 5 days before the assignment? So that way I can give information. It's pretty quick for me to go click on it and say, oh, you're missing these 6 students still.
Okay. Yeah, where I was going with this was, well, okay, if you make it a part of the grade, you have to be able to check and make sure they did it.
Yes.
And, you know, and I don't have any problem with that, but I, I just wanted to know how we would check to make sure that students did in fact complete the survey.
That's a great question. Oh, Robert, did you have
something? Well, once Amanda gets the data, she sends you a spreadsheet of all the information and the students submitted it, what their ratings were for themselves and other students. So you would see who submitted and what their submission results and statements are.
Okay, do you get that in sufficient time that you could alter the grade?
Amanda's really quick about getting those results to you. Yeah, so you could definitely, if you needed a few days.
Because it's going to come at the end of the term. It's going to come at the end of the term.
Yes, I had a couple quick turnarounds in fall, and I was able to get it to people within 1 to 2 days, depending on my schedule. Now, that's actually one of our next steps that I'll share in a moment, too. I'm looking for ways to make myself faster, too.
Another idea, and I do this because I do extra credit, they complete their end of course surveys, is I have them send me a screenshot when it says submitted, and they'll send that to me via email or in a submission in Canvas, and that also tells me they've done it because there's extra credit points associated with it. So I do that.
That's a good point. I think that's what Elizabeth Ginn did in her speech class too, was she had students take a screenshot of the submission page and then submit it on a Canvas assignment. Thank you, Jennifer. That's a good point.
Thank you. I like that idea.
I scrubbed the names off of a sample from the data in hold on. I still have it up as let me get it up as an Excel file. This looks horrible. I scrubbed the names of the students so I could show you a sample of what the survey results look like. So that way you can see what I send faculty members after. It's not this. Here we go. It looks like this. So the way I organize it is I have the same student listed 4 times. And then I have column C that says, well, who gave the rating? So the first row would be the student A themselves gave the rating. Then student B was rating student A, student C, and student D. So for this example that I used, I'm actually going to go ahead. I put the filters on here for a reason. I like the filters because then we can just say, oh, student A, and look only at how student A did. So student A rated themselves a 4 across the board, but student B and student D felt that student A deserved a 3 more. And I wanted to show you guys just some samples of some of the justifications we get. Like, these students are not just bringing us short explanations. I think I love this explanation the most. That's same in me. So a couple little grammar things, but completed all work on time, contributed, but wasn't really the main leader, but missed 1 meeting. So it's still giving them a 3. So it's saying, oh, well, they weren't really the biggest leader in the group, but they deserved a 3. And then very compliant, always inputted his opinion, did a great job. And it continues. You can see if you come over here, this is our criterion 2 rating. So that everyone agreed. It will not go over further. There we go. Excel, man, sometimes. They gave their partners, they gave student A all 4s, and their justification, they respected them, they were considerate to each other's schedules. So as a professor, as a faculty member, you gain a lot of information from these students' input. So this is what I send faculty members, and I make sure I try and keep this filterable at the top so they can filter and do whatever they need to with these scores. I know a lot of faculty create an average of the ratings if you're attaching some sort of grade to this. But I really like that students are taking the time to, like, I mean, look at this one. On time, even on vacation. That's a great compliment. And then you can come back and filter for the next student. So we can go off of student A, look at student B, and we'll see that this is the same way. Self will always be at the top, and then their peers' ratings will be after that. Any questions about the spreadsheet? Okay. Let me go back and just share with you our next goals, and then we're going to have some time to kind of collaborate for a little bit. So my next steps, we're supposed to assess teamwork in fall of 2021. So that's coming up. I'm working on a better way to clean the data. I am not an Excel wizard. I know a bit about it. I wish I knew more about macros because I feel like that's what I really need to make this faster. So I'm working with Mauricio Garcia in our IR department and Holly Cook to help me find a better way to clean the data. Also, if anybody is really an expert in Excel and would like to teach me a few things, by all means, I'm a very willing student. But what's really cool about this is that, I don't know, you might have noticed that I didn't just focus on the students from the sample, because there wouldn't be a really good way to just pick the students from a sample group and put only their names on a teamwork survey and leave off everyone else. That kind of defeats the purpose of an authentic assessment, because then we're singling out just the students that would be on that sample. So what's really cool is this potentially gives us a chance to gather data and analyze performance of students at multiple levels throughout their time at PAC, because we're giving the survey and getting data and collecting data on all of the students, not just the ones in the sample. Our data for actually reporting out for our assessment reports, that will be just containing the students in the sample, but we'll have all this data and spreadsheets that we can do something else with, which I'm excited about. We can potentially show growth because we'll have a baseline. And in spring 2021, my goal is to continue piloting the survey with any interested faculty. So if anyone here is interested in using the survey, you just have to let me know, and I'll make a copy for you in your class whenever it comes time for you to do the assignment. What happened last fall, faculty members that were interested contacted me at the beginning, and then I sent them an email probably about a week or two into the semester, because I know the first couple of weeks are really busy, to say the least. I mean, the rest of the semester is too, but and then I kind of get with them to say, hey, when are you giving your teamwork assignment? I'll contact you again 2 weeks before that to get student information. And then we start setting it up as it gets closer to the date when the assignment is given. So if you're interested, please let me know ASAP, and I'll be happy to get with you throughout the semester and you can try it out. And this is for anybody. So even if you've already done it and you want to do it again, you're welcome to do it again.
So Amanda, that was my question, because I know that students, right, aren't usually chosen for assessments, you know, that randomized 45 plus hours. Students aren't usually chosen until later on, right?
Yes.
It's just the history of randomizing and selecting students. So that was one of my questions, was in the fall, because I anticipate doing my teamwork assignment at the beginning of the semester, because I want to do it in pairs. And I'm afraid that more students are going to drop by the end of the semester. So I want to do it while I have everyone in class. I want to do it in pairs, and I want to do it like right off the bat. So is the assessment available like as soon as the semester starts?
I would really like to make that a possibility now that it's a digital survey, because I want everyone to have access to it and be able to use it however they feel best fits in their class. And then that way, if a student in your course ends up on the sample, then we would still have the data to pull from it. So I personally think that that's perfectly fine.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So our teamwork assessment resources, we have, of course, colleagues. We have our 2 pilot faculty, Elizabeth Montgomery and Jenny Scheit, that told me they were willing to share a little bit more today. And then I also have sent, I'm going to send this this PDF in the chat. I'm going to show you these real quick, and I'm just going to kind of hand the mic over to Elizabeth or Jenny and whoever wants to talk first. Leap Texas is one of our really great assessment websites. They said, it's actually really cool. They have this whole website devoted to teamwork in Texas in particular, and with examples across from Texas. So they give examples from colleagues of what they're doing. Most of the other ILOs for Texas, they are under construction, their website, but this is the one that's really fleshed out, and it has some great examples of teamwork from different universities. It has some interviews about teaching teamwork. It also, apparently they have a Twitter hashtag that they were using for teamwork. Twitter's overwhelming for me, so I barely go on it. I'm on the other stuff, but Twitter just stresses me out. There's too many tweets. But it has all these different things about teaching teamwork as well as assignments. So this is a great website. I'll send the link in the chat as well as it'll be on the PDF. And then the second resource that I have linked here too is something that I saw over the spring or summer. UT Arlington, their QEP topic, if I remember correctly, was about creating a teamwork guide and improving the way that teamwork assessment is run on their campus. And so they created these like fabulous open access resources. There's a student teamwork guide and an instructor guide, and they're free. And one of the things I like the most about the teamwork guide, let me see if I can get it open properly. I had a little trouble earlier. I don't know if I'm going to get it to open, but they actually have some different visuals, and they share with students what makes a leader in a team, what makes you have leadership qualities in a team. I think it even says, bright as day, it says, you do not have to be the leader of a group to behave as a leader. And so they have all this resources for students working in a team if you want to give your students some support, because some people find it difficult, right? And they don't know where to start. So it's a great resource. So I'm going to put the PDF in the chat, and I'll put those links. But I think based on the chat I see right now, I'm going to pass the mic to Liz for a little bit, and she's going to talk about her pilot experience and her teamwork assignment. Whatever you want to talk about teamwork related.
Okay. When Amanda originally talked to me, she was talking about sometimes faculty have challenge coming up with ideas in a remote environment of doing something that might work on Zoom. So one of the things I focused on was I often do a mock trial as a semester project. And so I felt like, with these different roles, like as like the court team, like the judge and the jury, and, they could work together as a team. There's a prosecution team, and they're representing a client. And as lawyers, they could, represent, work together as a team as well as with their client. So having different even dynamics or levels within that opportunity. And so that was one of the ones that I felt like my students really latched onto this semester, was working on that mock trial. They had a lot of fun. They were getting really competitive, and at the end they're like, "Oh, that was fun." Usually, if they don't like it, they don't say anything. But when they do really like, you have 10 people come after class and say, "Hey, I really like this." Another thing that I like to do is a world climate simulation where students are put in a role and they work together as countries. And this is a pre-created assignment that's available online, and they basically try to get each other to negotiate down their emission targets for carbon. And again, it's putting them in another role that they don't often see themselves in. They don't really have, students don't see themselves as, a world leader, and so they get to negotiate like they're a world leader. Or there's also the fossil fuel industry, or journalists, or many different things. So I felt like that really worked. Another thing that I was, gleaning from different meetings, there's about a year ago, I did a group plan, and I felt like group plans, when they say, how many times are you going to meet as a group? What role will you play? Where will your project be stored? Oftentimes that's a barrier too for my students. Sometimes people put their project in their garage, in the remote environment. We have more online stuff, but how will all the group members have access to this at all times? What role will they play? I was just thinking, I was in another experiential learning meeting, and they were talking about how, one of the students who had done a service learning project had reflected later on that one of the other team members had all the qualities that you would look for in a team member. And I was thinking that if I incorporated the group plan, I don't know why I didn't do it this semester with teamwork, but if I did that group plan and talked about those qualities that, would make a good team member, and then, with the survey and also reflection later on, they can reflect on what would make those qualities, not only will they identify them at first, but then later on reflect if they're team members also. So I think that, that's just a whole different avenue. You could do the survey. I love how you could do that. You could glean some of that information and put that into a group plan and have them kind of set that up from themselves and their own expectations as well. So hopefully I a lot of ideas for myself and what I'm going to incorporate in my class. So hopefully that was helpful.
That's great, Liz. I know that a group plan, or I know what you're talking about, a group plan, something that has students maybe write down what they're going to be accountable for, so that way they can hold themselves accountable throughout the group project. And it can be just as simple as you said, like, where are we going to be storing our information? Where are we going to meet? Like, how are we going to meet? Those things that we think about and just think we'll figure it out. It might be nice to have our students write that down ahead of time, have a better plan. Thank you, Liz. Jenny, are you available?
I am, and I want to apologize to everyone. First of all, Liz, thank you so much for taking that, because as you may have noticed, I'm in a different location. My son is moving back into the dorm this morning, but he told me last night that he has, he's a music major at UTSA, that he has an ensemble audition, and I thought we had worked all this out, and then he came and popped over and said it starts in 5 minutes. So he is upstairs blowing on his trumpet right now. So if you hear it, I apologize. But
it'll be good though. He's in the ensemble. It'll sound great.
So I really wanted to talk about, I had met with Amanda last fall, and we talked about in the English. It's been very challenging to do a teamwork assignment in online courses. We've struggled with that, and we can have students do peer review and peer editing, but it's not quite in the same category as a teamwork assignment. So, and I had talked with Amanda about that before, and then when it came up about piloting the survey, I wanted to try that. I taught a Flex 2 English composition course, but I really struggled with coming up with what to do. I don't like busy work as a teacher. I don't like busy work as a student, and I was having a hard time coming up with a teamwork assignment other than the fact of just creating an assignment to do teamwork. So Amanda was a wonderful resource, and I'm going to, if it's okay, I'm going to share my screen. There are no bells and whistles here, so no PowerPoints or anything exciting. And of course, okay, are you guys seeing the teamwork assignment? Okay, so basically what I tried to do is think about what do the students in Comp 1 really have difficulty with, and one of the cores of that class is teaching students source documentation and plagiarism, anti-plagiarism and all of the rest of that. So what I asked them to do for the teamwork assignment is to create an anti-plagiarism guide. And there are lots of things that I need to do to tweak the assignment to make it work better for future semesters, but it actually went pretty well. One of their assignments at the beginning of the semester is to look at, and I apologize again, I had all this set up with my dual screens, and my son, bless his heart, I hope his audition's going well. Okay, so one of the things I had the students do is read this publication put out by Harvard, where it talks about what constitutes plagiarism, because they know intuitively that if they go and lift something, I'd say most of them know, that if they lift something verbatim from the web, put it in their paper, don't acknowledge the source, that it's going to be plagiarism. But what they don't realize is that there are different types of plagiarism that can occur within a paper. Like I said, they know the verbatim, but mosaic plagiarism is where we really see a huge problem, as well as inadequate paraphrasing, unsighted quotes, etc. But it's really these two, the mosaic and the inadequate. So what I have them do this particular time is, and Mallory was a wonderful resource because I had not set up teams or anything like that. She made some videos for me. So I was able to show the students how to access their groups. It was a learning experience for me. But basically what they did is each one was responsible for defining what that specific type of plagiarism is, and then doing so in response to assigned readings that we had at that particular moment that they were going to be writing papers on. So let me see here. Let me scroll down a little bit. Okay, so they had to put together a group PowerPoint presentation addressing the 5 types of plagiarism mentioned. They had to define it using their own words. So they had to define it on their own, explain why it is considered plagiarism. And I found that I didn't see nearly as many examples of mosaic or inadequate paraphrasing as I have in previous semesters. So that tells me that this worked. And then they had to create an example within the guide using the assigned readings. So I was forcing them to do some examples of plagiarism and then fix them. So hopefully I wouldn't see that in the finished paper. Okay. And then of course I evaluated their 2 slides. They had to do 2 minimum. Many of them did many more. And then also they had to do I looked to see how many or how well they worked together as a team. And then they did have to do the survey as well. So I did add that in later. But the nice thing I want to show you is, okay, going from a small desktop to a laptop is something else. Okay, are you guys seeing that one? Okay, so this is a sample of one of, okay, great. This is an example of one of the projects that one of the students or a group put together. So this one was pretty fancy. It's way beyond my skill set. But so they indicate which types of plagiarism are going to be defined. And then they basically showed, here's what the definition is. Here's an explanation of why it is that. And then gave an example, pulled material from the assigned readings, showed how it would be done incorrectly, and then did the corrected version of that. So, and they did very, very well. Let's see here. Different students had different, this particular one was doing mosaic plagiarism, and then giving the original text, the plagiarized version, and the corrected version. Okay. And, of course, I learned some things. This was one of the fancier examples, but I did learn some things. It showed me just how well they understood the concepts, because I had a couple of students who defined mosaic plagiarism or inadequate paraphrasing, but they didn't really get it, because in their examples I could see that they were still doing what it was that they the corrected version wasn't really corrected, and that gave me an opportunity to step in earlier in the semester prior to a high stakes paper assignment. So it was very helpful for me, and the idea behind it was that it also gives them a tool that they can hang on to and use in later courses. So by no means is it perfect, but for the most part, most of the students really did participate. There were a couple who, I think I had them in groups of 4, that was 3 to 4. And there were a couple of students who, of course, dropped off. They were MIA. Part of that is Flex online. And I can tell you in the teamwork survey, which it's so helpful to see, like Amanda mentioned, their responses, their descriptions of each other's contributions. There was one student who said, she kind of roasted one of her teammates, saying, this person didn't do anything. I had to pick up extra work, But then again, to kind of see the consensus of the group's response to, and that person wasn't pulling his or her weight. The others did. They stepped in. I wouldn't have necessarily known how much that was happening without the teamwork survey. So again, that was very helpful to me. But I would say it was a great experience. I learned a lot. Like I said, I learned a lot as a faculty member, how I can tweak assignments, and also it served as a point where I can interject and kind of address things that I think they should know at this point in time, but obviously they need a little more support in those particular areas, and gives me a chance to refer students to tutoring. And the teamwork survey was very easy, very fast. And I think that was part of the problem before. All of the paper was just very clunky, and it was just a lot for the students to do. This was quick and easy, and it just fit seamlessly in with the assignment. So any questions or anything at this point?
I have a question for you. And sorry if I missed this, I had to step away for a second, but did you say that you gave them guidance on how to complete the survey well? Like providing feedback to their teammates or, justifying their ratings?
No. And that's something like listening to Amanda talk about that earlier. That's something that I would need to do, going forward. And that's one of the things too, since it wasn't a Zoom class where, I had this posted and I said, here's the survey, you need to complete it by such and such time. No, I probably should have created a video or something. In the assignment, it does say, you're going to be evaluated on these items in the survey. And I think there was a short description of someone who participates well, does X, Y, and Z, but it was just in the assignment, Julie. It wasn't specifically geared towards the survey later on.
Yeah, I think that the hard part about this is that we all see the value in the teamwork, like having them work together, but, we're not all experts on teaching them how to be good contributing team members and what that looks like in a well-functioning team. And I don't know the answer to that except trying, and I think Elizabeth touched on that. Liz did.
Yeah, and I'm sorry if I missed that. That was when I was relocating. So, and the trumpet is still going on upstairs. But I think what I would do probably going forward is, first of all, use one of the guides that's already put together, have that as a sample for the students to see and say, this is one that is done particularly well. These students did this, this, and this. All of the team members did this, so that way I could kind of tie that into the survey. But again, I think one of the benefits of the teamwork assignment and survey is that it lets you see where we need to fill in those gaps. You don't really see it until after the fact.
And just to kind of piggyback off of that, so it was kind of just my inexperience. I showed you guys that teamwork guide from UT Arlington, and I forgot how to use an open access resource. The content was right up here. I was so close. But I just wanted to show you guys that they do have this section called being a leader and being a follower. And if you click on it, the importance of being a follower in your group, it talks about like followership as an interactive role, as an independent role. Like, what are you doing with your team to support each other? And they keep it pretty short and sweet because, they know these are students looking through this. We don't want to overwhelm with information. And I think I also like this one. What are the benefits of teamwork? It talks about what is a team, why do we do it, and handling conflict in teams. And they do a lot of infographics, so use positive tones, listen, avoid saying that others are wrong. Things that we know, like, you get more skilled at the more you participate with a team, but it is really good to have students have this resource. I put the link in the chat earlier, but I'll put it in there again. But that one's a good one. It's from UT Arlington. If you just look up UT Arlington teamwork, it comes up. Since it was a part of their QEP, I think it's pretty visual, or it's pretty visible on their website. We're getting close to 12 p.m. So I wanted to see if there were any other questions or comments. I'm going to send out the survey link too in the chat before I forget. Liz knows I will forget if I don't do it now, so I'm just going to do it. And that's the survey link for the session feedback for Convocation, just to give us some input as to how you think this session went and if we can improve it in the future. I really appreciate all of you being here. I know a lot of you already use teamwork in your courses, and I hope that this survey can give you just one more avenue to get feedback from your students and to help see that insight to the team dynamic. And if you are interested in using it in these this coming semester, by all means, just let me know, and I'm ready to work on it with you. And if you ever need anyone to bounce ideas off of for teamwork assignments, I'm happy to do so as well.
Needing some